Hello everyone, my name is Amin Musa, security engineer at SOCFortress. In today's video, we're diving deep into Volatility 3. In this tutorial, we're going to go through every single volatility command you need to know as a security analyst, incident responder, or even a malware analyst. We created a free comprehensive cheat sheet that you can download and use. We'll be using a lab memory dump which contains a real rootkit. By the end of this video, you will have a solid knowledge on how to detect hidden processes, find malware in memory, identify C2 connections, and hunt for rootkits. And here is something huge. Volatility 3 is now available directly in the SOCFortress open source SIEM stack. We're talking full integration through CoPilot and Velociraptor. And we will be executing it all through CoPilot. First, you will have to install Volatility in your preferred Windows VM. One advice I can provide is creating a dedicated VM for analysis, etc. To achieve that, we have created an artifact for you that will help you install Volatility in just one click. After we install Volatility, we can start by examining our memory dump. This is our memory dump, a snapshot of RAM from a compromised Windows system. Everything that was on the memory at the time of capture is in this file. Processes, network connections, registry data, even encryption keys. The first command you should always run is windows.info. This gives us critical information about the system. Look at this output. We can see the Windows version, the kernel base address, GTP, and the symbol file being used. Now let's see what processes we're running. pslist walks through eProcesses linked list. This is how Windows keeps track of running processes. Here we can see the PID, the ppid, process name, creation time, and exit time if the process terminated. Notice that we have a lot of system processes. These are all normal, but keep an eye for the suspicious ones once we go deeper. Now here is where it gets interesting. psscan doesn't follow the eProcess list. It scans all of memory looking for processes structures. This means it can find processes that have been hidden by rootkits. Look at this, we're seeing more processes than pslist showed. This is a red flag in itself. The process tree shows parent-child relationship. This is critical for understanding how malware executes. If you see PowerShell.exe as a child of Excel, that's suspicious. Orphaned processes with no parents, that's weird too. And you should be looking for unusual parent-child relationships. They're often the first sign of compromise. This command extracts the command line arguments for each process, and what you should be looking for is encoded PowerShell commands, download cradles, suspicious file path, and even base64 strings. Alright, let's pause for a second. With all these commands that we run, we've already identified the OS version, found potentially hidden processes, mapped the process tree, extracted command line arguments, and discovered network connections. This is your triage toolkit. Now, let's go deeper into process analysis. Malfind is one of the most powerful malware detection plugins. It looks for process memory regions with page execute read-write permissions. Let me pick one of our running processes. This shows us every memory region allocated to this process, the virtual address, size of the region, protection flags, and file mapping if any. What you have to be looking for is regions that are executable without a file mapping, large private allocations, and usual protection combination. Every process loads DLLs, dynamic link libraries. These are the building blocks of Windows programs. For this process, we can see base address where each DLL is loaded, size of the DLL, load count, and the full path of it. What you have to be looking for here is DLLs loading from unusual paths, missing legitimate DLLs, and unknown DLLs. Handles are references to system resources. Think of them as pointers to files and registry keys. This process has handles to files, and the question we should be asking is what files is it accessing? And for the registry keys, did it modify anything or read anything? See these mutex handles? Malware families often have distinctive mutex names. You can search these in threat intelligence by databases. Environment variables can reveal modified path variables. It happens in some cases, and malware-specific configuration. Most of these will be normal Windows environment variables, but keep an eye out for anything unusual. Windows privileges control what a process can do. This command shows us privileges this process has. Dangerous privileges include set debug privilege, allows injecting into other processes, set load driver privilege, which allows you to load kernel drivers, which is pretty critical and dangerous. Okay, we've covered deep process analysis. With these commands, you can detect injected code, analyze memory allocations, list loaded DLLs, find suspicious handles, check privileges and permissions, and dump entire process memory. These are your malware hunting tools. Now let's focus on network activity. This is how we find C2 servers and data exfiltration. Netstat shows network connections with process context. It's more detailed than Netscan. For each connection, we can see local address and port, foreign address and port, connection state if it's established, listening, time wait, and the PID and process name. Let me look for suspicious connections. Connections to non-standard ports maybe, connections to foreign countries depending on your baseline, where you live and where the country is. User assist tracks program execution from the user perspective. It records programs executed, number of times it run, last execution time, and focus time. This is gold for timeline analysis. We can see what the user was doing before and during the compromise, which is pretty important. Shim cache is the application compatibility cache. It records full path of executables, last modified time, and whether it was executed or no. This can show us programs that were executed but may no longer be running. Great for finding evidence or deleted malware. Enough of the boring stuff. Now we're entering kernel-level rootkit detection. The SSDT is a table of pointers to kernel functions. When a program makes a system call, like opening a file or creating a process, Windows looks up the function in the SSDT. Each line shows the system call number, where it's supposed to point, its actual address, the module it points to. And the red flags you should be looking for are the addresses that point outside the kernel, module names we don't recognize, and any entry marked as hooked. This lists all loaded kernel drivers. These have complete control over the system. So, for each driver we see base address, size, name, and full path. For the security checks, all legit Windows drivers should be in C Windows System 32 drivers or C Windows System 32. If you see drivers from another location, you have to investigate. Remember how psscan finds hidden processes? DriverScan does the same for drivers. This associates driver objects with their module, useful for finding orphan drivers or mismatched associations. Kernel callbacks are notification routines. Drivers register these to be modified when a process is created, maybe with ps set create process notify routine, a thread is created with ps set create no thread notify routine, an image is loaded, ps set load image notify routine, registry operations maybe, SIEM registry callback, and object operations with ob registered callbacks. Before we wrap up, let me give you some advices. Always use CSV or JSON outputs for large investigations. You can then import them into Excel, Graylog, or Python for analysis. Yara rules let you scan memory for specific malware signatures. Build a library of Yara rules for common malware families. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next one.